Support for the Lancast is provided by Winding Way Books, Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, Lab Structures, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Lancast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser. This episode we talk with Joe, Riley, and Courtland, the creative team behind the downloadable game Pinball Massacre.
During this episode, the guys tell us a little bit about what it's like to design a pinball game.
You always start with really lofty goals. You sit down and you brainstorm and you go, oh yeah, let's add this. Oh yeah, we put that in. It wouldn't be too hard to add this. And then you begin to boil it down. And it becomes more of a list that you assemble that's needs versus wants. And in the end, you get as many wants in as you can.
We also learn about the inspiration behind the artwork for Pinball Massacre.
My thinking is, I push the color so hard, I push it to the point where it makes me want to vomit, and then I dial back. So I go too far, and then I pull back, and that's the look for me. It's all about exaggeration. It's all about too much, and just making you uncomfortable to the point where you almost can't take it anymore. But because hopefully it straddles the line where it looks cool and visually appealing.
Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself so people can get to know your voice.
I'm Joseph Krzemienski, also known as Joe. I am a creative director at Postage Incorporated studio downtown in Lancaster.
My name is Riley Hearn. I am the 3D animator, 3D specialist at Postage.
My name is Courtland Ellis, and I am the production artist at Postage Incorporated.
So you guys recently released a app game both for the Mac and the iOS
That
systems.
is correct, yes.
Called Pinball Massacre.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the drive behind that?
Well, the inspiration was we wanted to make a game. That was Pinball Massacre is the crystallized vision of our first attempt to make a game. I mean, one of our driving forces in the studio is just to, as lame as it sounds, to make cool stuff, and any way we can facilitate that is we'll go down that path.
Yeah. Why pinball?
I think pinball came to us as an opportunity. We work with a programmer remotely out where I went to school out near Erie, Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. And he is this incredibly talented programmer and a close friend of mine. And he said, "Hey, I have this skeleton, this program skeleton for a pinball game." And, he's a programmer, so he didn't have any graphics or any kind of visuals in there. And I said, well, I know some people that do that. So I did the 3D, and I had worked with Jake in the past, and I knew Joe was working on this fantastic comic book series that was really coming into its own, and I thought, hey, if we can coat a pinball table in this comic book, then it would make something pretty cool. So it definitely all came together, and Joe and Courtland bit right into it, and it was a collab since then.
So when you said the pinball, he had like the skeleton.
Basically a programming framework of a pinball game.
It was very rough.
Yeah, it was very rough. And to say no visuals means like there was no geometry, there was no art on the table. It was literally a ball that would react to physics, and it could hit with paddles, and the ball would go places.
Yeah. In fact, try to imagine a pinball table as a skeleton. Okay. And that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No meat.
Yeah.
Well, before we get any further, let's just get a little idea of what each of you were in charge of on this program. Why don't we start with Courtland?
Basically, I did the artwork for the game. I designed the background for the table. I did the background on the start menu. And other than that, I just work on the comic.
Yeah, but all that art spawned from all the pages he's been producing from the comic book. Like if you look at the art on the table, you could pull that directly off the pages, which is exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, Courtland's kind of like he's the he's the heart and soul of the comic and the game, where like I'm kind of the mind that's steering it. But you didn't get to me yet, so I'm going to shut up.
I was just about to say wait your turn, but
Oh boy. Okay, my turn. I created the 3D framework for the game. Jake handed me the dimensions of the game, the collision for the game, which is where the ball reacts, walls basically, and I built visuals. I built 3D polygons for these two to draw on. And I create an object, I create a map that they can read and paint on, and then we basically wrap that onto the table. So I did the scaffolding for the table, basically, and then these guys did the paper, the wallpaper.
My turn?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what you would call what I did on the game would be just creative direction, and also I operated as a texture artist, which basically means I take things that Courtland's done and I apply them. I actually I'm the bridge between Riley and Courtland. I make sure that everything that they're giving me looks good in the final piece. Also, as writer of the comic book, I'm also, if we have ideas for the table, I can say that wouldn't happen in the Stabb Gunner universe, or that would. So basically, I'm just kind of a filter and the person again who bridges the gaps. So that's my role. And also, if we need music, if we need anything really, through my association with Postage, or the company, I can just kind of source whatever talent we need and bring them in. So that's what I do. I facilitate.
So the music, where did you? We got a chance to play the game for a few minutes here.
Sure.
Where'd you find the music for this? I
have been a huge fan of an artist called who calls himself Phantom Enk. I believe he's a Swedish artist. We've had a few email exchanges, so we haven't gone into each other's biographies, but I've been listening to his work for years now, and he's a chiptunes artist, so that means he works with like 8-bit music. So if you're a big fan of Nintendo or Sega, then you're gonna like his stuff. But we needed a soundtrack for our game, and the comic is actually based on old beat 'em ups like Streets of Rage, Street Fighter, that kind of stuff. So if you know what I'm talking about, this all makes sense. Mm-hmm. But he's been my favorite for years. So I just reached out to him and I said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We know what you're doing. And we think you'd be a good fit." So I just started a conversation with him, and he happens to love Stabb Gunner. So we just made it work. So it's kind of a mutual promotional thing for us. Like we expound his virtues, and, as people buy our game, there's links in the game to go to iTunes and buy his album. So it works out.
When designing a game like this, how do you decide what to and what not to have on the board?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, you always start with really lofty goals. You sit down and you brainstorm and you go, "Oh yeah, let's add this. Oh yeah, we put that in. It wouldn't be too hard to add this." And then you begin to boil it down. And it becomes more of a list, that you assemble, that's needs versus wants. And in the end, you get as many wants in as you can. But and Joe is very important for me on this subject. At some point, you just got to release the game, and you could take forever, adding more things or waiting for the next edition. But really, it's very important to keep in mind that you're trying to produce something, and ultimately it has to be done someday.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of what it boils down to, as far as what goes in, what stays in, is really the point, because a lot of things go in that don't remain in the final version. But anyone who loves games will tell you if a game's not fun, then you should lose it. So anytime we would add something that didn't quite work, we'd lose it, or we'd tweak it until it worked correctly. For example, like the positioning of some of the bumpers. In a lot of pinball games, you can't get to the top half of the pinball table, and you can't stay there and have fun scoring points. That was really important to us. So we tweaked everything from the speed of the ball to how many bumpers were up there just to keep your ball in play. So there's a lot of thought that goes into something as simple as a pinball table. And the fact that it's simple was great for us because it's our first game. But, a tremendous amount of thought goes into it.
Who's kind of the one that makes the final cut, is like where everything's going to be, and how difficult is this game going to be? And I guess not really who, but like how do you come to that?
Well, sure. I mean, something that's not obvious in the game. Well, first off, there's the technical reasons that it's hard or easy. In our particular game, every time easy, medium, and hard have, I think, a 10% scale increase of the paddles.
Yes, the paddles actually change.
They're actually bigger. Also, you get more lives.
The gravity on the ball is faster when it's on hard.
Okay. Yeah. So there's all these different physical limitations to the game that make it easier or harder. But really, it's all just a matter of tweaking and what's fun. So we just play it a lot, and if it seems too hard, then we say, okay, this is too hard. We can't be doing this on easy. So it's a lot of just like shooting from the hip and just feeling it out.
How did you play test the game? Was it just the three of you constantly playing it, or did you get some outside input?
No, we actually had a lot of people play it. We baited it in-house and out. We sent it to a lot of people and got a lot of feedback back and forth when we were still working out bugs and making sure there weren't any holes in the gameplay. And that's where some of our key features came from. And I didn't really have a full respect for beta testing games until I did it, because I thought I knew what was going on. But when we were finishing the game, we were thinking, man, this is a lot of fun, but why is it different? Or how could it be different than other pinball? And ultimately, yeah, things happened on the table, things went crazy, but there wasn't anything genuinely keeping people playing that they wouldn't do on other pinball tables. And we had, I can't remember his name.
Kyle. Yeah, but there's a little backstory to what you're talking about, though. I mean, we play the game all the time in the studio. We play every day. I've probably played it thousands of times, and so you get really good. And the pinball game is mission based, so there are about I should know this.
I think there are 12.
About 12 missions. But once you beat the final mission, the last mission is score as many points as possible. Once you get to that point, it's like, okay, I'm here and I'm just playing now. What's the point? So we had one of our beta testers in, Kyle, and he suggested the idea for a level ball. So we implemented, with Jake's help, of course, our programmer, we decided that in a lot of RPGs, one of my favorite elements is the fact that your characters get more powerful. So the longer your ball is in play, it gains levels, so that it actually increases in size and scores you more points. And it changes colors, so there's like visual feedback in addition to just the point system. But it's just this extra thing that's like, okay, well, I've got this, I've got the pinball, but now I can get it all the way up to a level 4 ball. So even if you're at the end of the game and you're a good player, there's a reason for you to continue to play.
Yeah,
it's little things like that, I think.
Yeah, and that's something that wouldn't have come up if we hadn't shot it around to other people before coming in.
Were you guys big pinball players before this?
No, actually, no. I think this is generally how all of us feel. Our parents were,
yeah,
or at least my parents were, and we were thinking about how we could make it fun for a generation that really didn't get that much exposure to pinball. And
well, I think my first reaction, because the way we even got involved, or our studio got involved, because Riley brought it to us before he was like as integral a part of the studio as he is now. But he called me up and he's like, okay, so we're working on this new game. We wanted to use your comic book. And he's like, so the idea is pinball. And I think I was like, huh,
What?
Of all the things. Okay, whatever. But I found really very early that once I dug into it, there is so much to pinball that I never even realized. I mean, there's tournaments, there's a huge community about keeping pinball alive. And so we just tried to plug into all that stuff and just kind of channel it into our game. And just I love pinball so much now. So like if I go into a bar and I see that they've got a pinball machine, I'm there like immediately.
Yeah.
It's just kind of changed the way I interact with arcades and bars and stuff like that. It's really cool what happens when you like really throw yourself into something like this.
So your game is bringing communities together.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well, we're going to head to break here. When we come back, we're going to have more with the guys. The Lancast is proud to be sponsored this episode by Lab Structures.
Lab Structures are premier builders of custom sheds and other outbuildings, and you can find them in Pleasant, New Holland, PA.
One of the things Lab Structures is known for is their ability to put your structure wherever you need it. Whether that be a rural open backyard or a close-quarters city yard, they've got a way to get it done.
So if you're thinking about more storage space, some place for your outdoor supplies, or a garage for that new car, Lab Structures has got you covered.
If you'd like to learn more about Lab Structures, you can visit thelancast.com and click on their banner at the top of the page. Also, if you mention to Linda that you heard this ad, you'll get a free ramp with your structure.
So Courtland, we already discussed you do the artwork, the drawing, you're the pencil. How do you come up with the characters when you draw them, how they're going to look? What's your inspiration? What other artwork inspires you?
When I'm trying to get inspired, a lot of the times I like to look back on my favorite artist, who is LaShawn Thomas, who he grew up in New York, which is where I grew up at. I don't know, I find him an inspiration because he's out there doing what I want to do and what I am doing now, obviously. And, you know, I look at him and he has a very good grasp of, you know, the human body, and I try to capture some of that in my characters and in Stabb Gunner. And, I've grown a lot since we started.
Yeah, Courtland's been with us before he even started on it, but he started interning with us, and even what was that, a year ago?
It's over a year ago now.
Yeah, I mean I can't even remember, time flies, but he's grown so much as an artist since he first started with us. A lot of it has to do with the sheer volume. You know, when you come to our studio, like, you are working all day at the top of your game, and nothing less will do, because we don't have room for people who are pulling the team back. So, and what you said, LaShawn
Thomas.
Yeah. And he, what did he do? Like, was it Boondocks?
Yeah, he storyboards for Boondocks, Ben 10. He's, right now he's working on the new Avatar series. He does the storyboards for that and character development as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at, knowing that, if you go in and look at some of those titles that Courtland just mentioned, and you look at some of his work and some of the stuff he's done for Stabb Gunner, you might see some parallels just as far as approach. I think it's cool. I like seeing those parallels between the two.
I saw a little bit in some of the artwork. I saw a little part to like Naruto and some of that stuff. So I you know, I don't know if you're a fan of them or not.
I'm definitely a fan of Naruto. Things like Naruto, a little Bleach, Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, definitely. Those are great series that I like to look back on often. But yeah, for the most part, I'll check back with LaShawn Thomas. I'm always comparing my artwork to him, and another artist named Lazy Mills, which is completely the opposite of him. It's all about exaggeration with her work. Is a female. Right. Yeah, those are the two I refer back to often.
I have to say, one of the things that sets this particular game out from the others is the artwork, and not just what's on the board, but just the way everything kind of looks, especially like when the balls are leveling up, the glow they have around them, and how you kind of use the art to almost add into the game. The table has a section where it zooms in and you're bouncing off a bunch of guys with guns, and then all of a sudden black smoke like clouds up in your face like a smoke bomb. And I had never seen anything. I mean, that's something you'd see in, like, I don't know, some big game with, some bigger game, like a first person shooter. And it kind of gave you that first person feel of playing the pinball game.
Well, it makes me happy to hear you say that because like we were actually trying to build an experience. The whole idea of the game is, the pinball game actually plugs into the Stabb Gunner comic book. So the Pinball Massacre, which is the title of the game, is a yearly tournament that's held in Scene City where the comic book takes place. And, so basically, Pinball Massacre is their, Super Bowl. Everybody comes to this casino stadium and they just pack it full, and it's basically the biggest concert you've ever seen. And it's just these 3 finalists up on stage playing pinball. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what we tried to do, and that's why when you do something really good in the game, you'll hear cheering, and then you'll see the flash bulbs of the camera. It's like you are that player. You're on stage, and the idea between the music and all the audio you hear is to, as best we can, simulate the experience of you being on stage playing an awesome game of pinball in front of people. It's silly, but everything we do is silly, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, and that's the fun of it. The energy and the ridiculous nature of what we're doing is what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you were originally asking Courtland about, like, where does this stuff come from? I mean, he's got his process, of course, but specifically for Stabb Gunner, it starts with laughs. We come up with the dumbest characters we can possibly come up with, and then make them fit and actually make them look cool. I mean, you'll see in the first comic book, there's a guy with a chainsaw sword. It's ridiculous. Who would do that? But that's what Stabb Gunner is about. It's about going over the top. And you'll see that even in the art direction for the game and, for the comic. It's, I'm the colorist for both. So my thinking is, I push the color so hard, I push it to the point where it makes me want to vomit, and then I dial back. So I go too far, and then I pull back, and that's the Stabb Gunner look for me. It's all about exaggeration. It's all about too much, and just making you uncomfortable to the point where you almost can't take it anymore. But because hopefully it straddles the line where it looks cool and visually appealing.
You asked who would have a chainsaw sword. I would have a chainsaw sword.
In a perfect world.
I would be a chainsaw ninja.
How would you sneak around with your chainsaw?
I'm a ninja. I'll let that figure it out. I have these sacred mystical powers.
The sacred chainsaw sword. Cool.
I cover it over with music. I don't know.
Kenny G.
Kenny G.
Really?
Kenny G.
What's that? Oh, it's so smooth.
Kenny G.
It makes me not worry about this chainsaw that's hitting. No, the exact conversation we just had is why Stabb Gunner is in existence. That is us sitting in the studio going, wouldn't it be ridiculous if
blank.
Yes.
You make sure I get your email address so I can send all my ideas.
They'll start showing up.
So tell us a little bit about Stabb Gunner in general. I mean, we know about the game now, but what is Stabb Gunner?
Stabb Gunner is about it's the story of 2 characters. The lead, Stabb Fisticuffs, that's his name, and the other lead, Stabb's the male lead, and the other lead is Gunner. She just goes by one name, and she is the Gunner. So Stabb stabs people and Gunner shoots people. So the whole idea, it's a revenge story. Stabb, in the beginning of the graphic novel, Stabb is in a sanctuary. He's become a monk. He's taken a vow of he calls it no punchies, but it's he's a pacifist. So, and it opens, he's in the market, he's buying some stuff for the monks, and he gets back to the sanctuary, and he finds everyone murdered. And there's this guy there, his name is Muscle Guy, because we were too lazy to come up with a name that made sense.
And that ties in later, too. Muscle Guy,
yeah.
He's a very interesting character. He evolves a bit.
And, basically, the whole arc of the story is, Stabb is faced with a decision, to either take it lying down or, just go on a revenge rampage. All of his friends have been murdered, and the mayor of Scene City, which is where all this takes place, is responsible for it. He hired this hit squad of ninjas, and they sent him after his guys. And Stabb decides to just go crazy and get revenge for all of his friends. It's a very simple story. But in that simplicity, there's a lot of room for us to play around. And, we inject a lot of video game, like old video games, 8-bit to 16-bit era kind of conventions. So if you were a fan of all those, of video games from back in that era, you'll probably love Stabb Gunner. It's cool.
Well, I think the big question that everyone's been thinking about Stabb Gunner is, when are you going to incorporate the Lancast in the comic book?
Right.
That's yeah. I don't know if you guys want to be DJs. We have a big.
He wants to be champ. That's his favorite. Champ.
Well, we have a luchador.
I'm the face.
The face and champ. Actually, I'm gonna write that down real quick.
Champ in the face.
Do you need to come over and model
Vegas Teddy's Casino?
Okay. If you see that show up, don't be surprised. We actually do pull a lot of just our day-to-day interaction into the comic book.
Oh, yeah.
You'd never recognize it if you weren't in on the joke. But
Yeah. Many of our characters, Vegas Teddy specifically, is drawn almost directly from experience with somebody else in a bear suit.
Yeah, it was a crazy party. Somebody came as a carnival bear, who they just ripped the stuffing out and just decided to put the bear on as a costume. So that's where Vegas Teddy came from. I'll show you, I'll include images for you guys so we can share this with everyone. But Vegas Teddy is just a woman in a bear suit. That's it.
You have Postage and Victory. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. Well, this is Joe talking. Myself and my business partner, Alan Clements, and most people from Lancaster, well, not most, but a lot of people know who he is. He's a gregarious, awesome guy. He and I met about 3 years ago, I guess now, at a Starbucks. We were both just kind of doing our freelancing thing. I was an animator by trade, and he was more of a video production guy, so we'd go out and actually shoot commercials and stuff for people. And we'd just kind of been drifting in the general area. But we started talking, and a year later, after hanging out and just discussing the things that we loved, we found out we had a lot in common. We ended up getting a studio space together, where we currently are in the Central Market Mall. And we entered that space as our two different companies. I was the Victory, and he was Otaku Motion. But after a year of working together and competing essentially in the same office, we just decided that we enjoyed working with each other, and we got tired of writing each other checks because we would constantly be hiring each other. So we just incorporated. We became Postage Inc. about 2 years ago. And ever since then, we've just very organically been growing in downtown Lancaster. I wanted to have my own studio since I can remember, and through knowing Alan and through the people that I've been able to meet through Postage, my little dream, my pipe dream that was never going to happen, happened. And now I'm a creative director at my own company and my own studio. And I work with some of the coolest and best people I've ever met in my life. And I love every day. I love what I do. It's the best job. I have the best job. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. You get a lot of, you get a lot of what do you do? What exactly on a daily basis is occupying you? But yeah, it's a fantastic place to work, and it's just always interesting every day. Very, very, and you see a lot of people doing things that are not that. So it's, you can't take it for granted at all.
And Postage, I mean, you've probably seen a lot of our work. We've done a lot of local commercials. But we also do, our clients range from, we'll do something for a mom and pop store all the way up to Cisco Systems. So we run the gamut, and we love working on a small scale and a large scale, because you get to, with the small scale, you're working with the people who make everything happen, and you're much closer to, the heart of the company. But with the bigger things, we're working with more people, bigger budgets, and it's all about time management and finding the right people. I think it's cool, being able to, live in both of these worlds simultaneously. It's a lot of fun.
So I know that being in Lancaster is important for you guys. You had mentioned that to me before at one point. Why is this centralized location good for you?
Well, first off, geography. Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C. are just a train ride away. So that's awesome. But aside from that, I've lived in big cities. I lived in Philadelphia for about 8 years, and I also lived in the suburbs. And Lancaster, for me at least, marries the best of both of those worlds. And to have the operation that we have, now we could operate in Philadelphia, but when we first started, we wouldn't have survived for a week. The rent would have killed us immediately. So between the amazing artistic community here and just the way things are priced, we're able to have a state-of-the-art visual effects and animation company in downtown Lancaster, and I don't think that would have happened anywhere else.
I was really happy to find this place in Lancaster, because this was always my dream to get to come to work and work on comics, do commercials, do animation. And when I was in college, it slowly died because me and Joe, we went to the same school.
We love our alma mater, by the way. Hushin rule.
School of Art. And it's majoritively a graphic design school, but you can take a major of illustration. And while I went there, I slowly, little by little, pushed more toward graphic design because it made more money. But, I've always been an illustrator by heart. And little by little, I started to not want to animate until one day, Joe came to the school and started showing these cool animations. And I've always been an introvert. I wasn't going to talk to him, and somebody told me, hey, you should show him your drawings. And, I walked up to him, showed it to him, and he liked it. He said, give me your email. And, the rest is history. And I came to the studio, had a little interview, a portfolio showing, and they seemed to like my work. It took a while for them to get back to me. But, eventually it came. And, next thing you know, I'm driving to Lancaster to draw. To draw as my, internship job.
Well, for me, Lancaster has always been I'm a native Lancastrian. Is that correct? Is it Lancastrian?
I don't know.
Lancaster? Either way.
Lancaster.
I'm from here.
Yeah,
I grew up in, outside of Lancaster. I grew up around Mardick, and, I went away to school, and I thought, all right, I'm getting this 3D animation degree, and I'm going west. I'm going to be in Seattle 3 years from now, gone. And I came back home, and, a couple of people I knew here went, PostageVFX. There's a studio right over there. And I went, Lancaster, what are you talking about? And I went over and we started working on some independent projects. I was just, talking to the guys, and I started doing some 3D work for them, and it ultimately led to where I am now. But via Postage, I actually learned like what the city is, the city of Lancaster. I had lived here all my life, but I'd never really spent any time in the city. And now that I'm here, I could not imagine living in a larger town, in a more, just developed, city. And I really, have a hard time imagining leaving this area now, even though I thought I always would. So, yeah.
So if somebody was interested in learning more about Postage or about Stabb Gunner or the game, where could they go to find this information?
Well, there is a dearth of web locations to go to, but I think the most important ones are the ones that you just mentioned. So we keep a blog at PostageVFX.com, just our day-to-day ins and outs of the studio. So go there if you want to see what we're doing there. A Pinball Massacre, if you want to play the game or even try the free light version, just go to your iPhone or your or iTunes and just type in Pinball Massacre. It'll pop up immediately, and just download it and go at it. And if you want to read Stabb Gunner to get a little background information of where the game comes from, just go to thefactorycomics.com. And just click on the Stabb Gunner link, and you can read the first issue for free. It's all there.
Very cool. We want to thank you guys for taking the time out to come visit with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Absolutely. It was a blast.
We hope you've been enjoying the Lancast.
This episode was produced by myself, David Moulton, with show notes by Keith and Lauren Slesser.
All pertinent links to this episode can be found in the show notes at thelancast.com.
If you specifically liked this episode, we ask that you consider making a donation.
Every little bit helps. Even $1 a show can keep us going.
If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by going to thelancast.com/donate.
And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes and tell a friend about the show.
So, for the Lancast, I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser.
Asking, are you in the cast?